us. I'd first like to say that this meeting is being recorded, so anyone who is uncomfortable with your camera being on, please feel free to turn that off now. My name is Denyel Fonseca with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services representing Hyde Park, and this is the community meeting being held for 1174 River Street. One second, let me make myself the presenter so that I can be able to share my screen with you all. But this is the abutters meeting being held for 1174 River Street, which is being proposed for Sugarloaf Boston Cannabis, LLC. This application is by Jeffrey Drago for Drago and Toscano, LLP. And this is for a recreational cannabis dispensary to be established and operated at that address. In one moment, I'm just going to share my screen with you all, and we will go through some features of WebEx for anyone who is unfamiliar, in addition to going through some expectations for this evening. One moment.
If you're going to start the meeting, you should put that link up for people.
Why not
Well, the car.
We can put it in the chat. It's yeah.
Okay, found it. I'm gonna make myself a panelist now. There we go. Okay. Can you all see my screen okay? Okay, awesome. Okay, again, this is the Sugarloaf Boston Cannabis LLC proposed as a recreational cannabis dispensary to be operated at 1174 through 1178 River Street. So for anyone who is new to WebEx, this platform, when you join as an attendee, your microphone will be automatically muted and you will not have the ability to turn your camera on. So if you're joining us virtually, the menu that will be located at the bottom of your screen is going to have different icons. And for the microphone, this will be grayed out. There is also a participants, which looks like a little blue person, a Q&A, more, and leave event. To give testimony this evening, you can raise your hand or you can comment in the chat box and I will unmute you. To raise your hand, you're going to open the participant information panel. You can click that hand icon, which will be located at the lower right-hand corner of your screen. If you scroll down all the way to your name, lower right-hand corner, there should be a little hand icon. Click that to virtually raise your hand. If you're connected via telephone this evening, please press *3 to raise your hand. You will hear 2 beeps and I will take you off of mute. So the agenda for this evening, we're going to get into the presentation of the proposal with the applicants, and then the remainder of the time will be devoted to public comments. After this meeting has come to a conclusion, before you can submit any additional written comments or testimony before they see the Boston Cannabis, before they go before the Boston Cannabis hearing, to myself. My email is listed for anyone who's joining us virtually, or excuse me, via telephone. I will say that at the end of this email, or you can email the cannabis board at boston.gov. Okay. So before I hand it over to Jeff, I'm just going to get into a couple of guidelines for this evening. So again, I'm here to facilitate the statutorily required cannabis community outreach. Again, this application is for the Sugarloaf Boston Cannabis LLC. Before we start, my expectation for this evening's meeting is that everyone just engages respectfully with each other. I want to make it clear that no decisions are being made this evening, and at no time will it be acceptable to be disrespectful to anyone during this meeting. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions. There is no right or wrong opinion, and we are all here tonight to try and collect as many comments and questions for this proposal. I am not here to facilitate debates amongst neighbors or relegate state legislation. I ask that all questions be directed toward the applicant and myself only. The applicant will answer questions related to their proposal to the best of their ability, and I will answer questions specifically to the city's processes. If I am unable or the applicants are unable to answer any questions this evening, we will follow up with you after the meeting to get that information for you. This is an open comment period, meaning that if you are not called on tonight, or if you think your questions have not been answered, all you need to do is reach out to us and we will work with you to get you that information. My contact information will be included and has been included on the flyer that everyone received to attend this meeting this evening. There will be no questions during the presentation, but once the presentation has concluded, again, we will go over some expectations and leave it open for public comments. So at this time, I am going to pass it over to Jeff so he can start his presentation and we can move this meeting forward. Jeff, you should be able to have.
So Matt's actually shared, Danielle.
Matt is going to start?
I'm going to
Okay,
speak.
so
Matt's going to share the screen so we can sort of go on.
sounds good. So Matt, you should have the ability to any moment now share your screen. So whenever you're ready.
Okay, see that, Matt? If you go full screen, that would be great. Perfect. Thanks, Danielle, and thanks everyone for attending the virtual meeting today. As Danielle had mentioned, this is a proposal at 1174-1178 River Street, which is in the picture we're showing in front of us on the screen right now in Hyde Park by Sugarloaf Boston Cannabis LLC. My name's Jeff Drago. I'm an attorney with Drago and Toscano. And with me, I have Flavia Hungaro, who's here. And we're going to hear from Flavia in a little bit about who her company is when we get to those slides and who her team is that's here tonight. As was mentioned, this is a proposal for a cannabis establishment, adult use establishment at this site. If we could go on to the next slide, please. You're going to hear a lot of information tonight, and some of it is obviously it's all relevant information. Some of it is boilerplate that we do have to inform you of. For instance, this meeting is virtual, so some of this stuff I'm required to read. And then once we get through all of our presentation and all the information, we'll have a question and answer period, and we're here to answer any questions or hear any comments that folks have. But just again, for our welcome, so Sugarloaf Boston Cannabis LLC wants to welcome you to a virtual community outreach meeting to discuss their application for a proposed cannabis establishment at 1174-1178 River Street in Hyde Park, pursuant to the Mass Cannabis Control Commission's administrative order, which allows virtual web-based community outreach meetings and other applicable laws and regulations promulgated thereunder, including those promulgated by the Mass Cannabis Control Commission. As part of this process, we're also offering that this meeting would be allowed for closed captioning. And my office put that link in the chat for any of you who are interested, or for those that may be hearing impaired. That will all of tonight's meeting will be able to be viewed in closed caption at the link that we're providing, but it's also in the chat if folks want to write that down, and it's all taped as well. Next slide, please. Again, this is the community notice. So we did have a number of outlets to notify the public of tonight's meeting. This was put in both the local newspaper as well as the Boston Herald. This was posted in the city, stamped by the city clerk in their public meeting section. We also canvassed and flyered the neighborhood in a 300-foot radius on a list that we obtained from the city of Boston. We also sent out certified mail to our abutters as well. And this is just a copy of that meeting notice and link. Next slide, please. And this is just an aerial view of the building where the red highlighted dot is. But again, the purpose of tonight, we're going to handle a number of topics and about this proposal. So one is team and proposal. 2 is going to be the location. 3, safety and security plans and procedures to prevent diversion to minors. And I want to point out we have Rick Nagel, who's our security consultant, who will be here at the end to answer any questions around security and safety. 4, positive impacts on the community, and that includes our community diversity and inclusion plan, and employment opportunities and benefits for the community. Parking and transportation plan, steps to avoid any nuisance or public nuisance, and then finally a question and answer period for the public. Next slide, please. So again, the proposal that we're here for tonight is we're seeking to change the occupancy at 1174-1178 River Street to include a cannabis establishment. Part of this proposal would also include 5 parking spaces in the rear of the property. And when we get into our transportation plan, we're going to go over how that would be helpful and how that will benefit. This particular applicant is a women and owned and minority equity applicant, and that falls under a certain criteria by both the CCC as well as the Boston Cannabis Board that has to be met to be an equity applicant. And in our particular case, the categories that we would fall under, and that has to do with the members of our team, our ownership team, a person who has resided in an area of disproportionate impact as defined by the Cannabis Board for at least 5 to 10 years. 2, a person who has resided in the city of Boston for at least the past 7 years. 3, a person who is Black, African American, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, or indigenous descent. And then a person whose annual household income is at or below 100% of the area median income. So these folks would qualify both at the state and the city level. And this really allows for smaller local applicants who are minority would be able to also partake in ownership of cannabis establishments throughout the city. And that is something that the city of Boston, as well as the state, has encouraged. And so we're happy to say that we meet those criteria. And you're going to hear from Flavia in a few minutes to discuss the composition of her ownership team. The current use of this property is commercial property and office space. So we do fall within a neighborhood shopping district, which is important. That allows for this use to be conditional. And that is something that the state as well as the city has been encouraging for applicants, is to be within a commercial district. Our lot size is 6,297 square feet. We are not located within 500 feet of a pre-existing public or private school from grades 1 through 12, and we are not located within a half mile of any existing cannabis establishment. Next slide, please. So this is our zoning code refusal letter. As part of our process, we are also going to have to go before the Zoning Board of Appeal. So we applied before the Boston Cannabis Board as an applicant. If we are to be approved, hopefully, we would then move on to the Boston Zoning Board of Appeal. The only variance that we would need is a use regulation. And as I had mentioned, because this is a commercial area, it is labeled as a conditional use. Next slide, please. This is just some general information as part of our proposal. So the hours of operation, which are pretty standard in this sphere, is 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. We have agreed that we would have a customers by appointment only for the first month to let this new business be integrated. We have a strict requirement for identification. So everything will be verified and scanned and stored in a database. And you're going to see more of that when we get into our security plan. Our workforce will be locally sourced, and we're going to hire as many local Boston, Hyde Park members as we can as part of our team. We are roughly talking 3 to 4 security personnel. Those folks would be inside the business, but then also checking on the outer perimeter as well. And then another up to 15 employees in the retail, and that could be management, sales, and such, back of the house. Next slide, please. So I'm going to turn it over to Flavia to tell you a little bit about Sugarloaf and then introduce who the ownership team that we're going to show you a slide on as well. So Flavia, if you're unmuted, you can introduce yourself.
Hello, hi. My name is Flavia Hungaro. I am one of the owners of Sugarloaf Boston Cannabis. I have another five actually members of my team. Lucas, Laurie, Irene Hicks, and myself are the owners, and we have Lynn Career, who is going to be part of the management team, and we're all going to be introduce ourselves. So I'll start with myself. So I'm originally from Brazil. I moved to the US. I was about 18 years old, and I barely spoke English at that time. As the time went by, I was able to take English classes. I was able to start college. I attended Mass Bay Community College, where I got my associate's degree in general studies and science. And then after that, I received a scholarship at Boston University. And that's where I decided to continue my studies, and I got my business administration degree there. And once I was, planning to graduate, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do after college, cannabis was one of the industries that came to my mind, because I saw there was a lot of potential. And also at that time, medical cannabis was starting in Massachusetts. However, with all the requirements, I saw there wasn't going to be something that would work because I wouldn't qualify. And so I continued my path. I actually ended up becoming a caregiver, and I learned how to cultivate and also, deal with, patient services in the medical cannabis industry. And after that, once recreational started in Massachusetts, I saw there was an opportunity for people such as myself to start in this new industry. And so I started pursuing cannabis licensing. I was able to qualify for the social equity program with the Cannabis Control Commission on the first cohort. And I was able to take the classes, finish the course, and continue my path into this industry. So I'll be, one of my other partners, Irene Hicks, she's retired as a human resources from the Department of Justice. She won't be here tonight, unfortunately, so I'll pass on to Lucas. Lucas, are you there?
We can pull up his slide, Flavia, just
right.
So folks can see. Matt,
otherwise, if Laurie is available, I know she's in. Can you unmute yourself, Laurie, if you're there?
She should have that ability to unmute herself. I can try as well. I don't know where she.
Yeah, I don't want to, because I think we're limited on time. So, we can, but this is our, you can see all of our team members here, Flavia, Lucas, Lynn, and Laurie, and their backgrounds as well. And again, this is a social equity applicant, both at the state level as well as the Boston Cannabis Board. Next slide, please. Well, I think Laurie said she was not able to unmute in the chat. I don't know, is she able to unmute?
I don't see her anymore.
Okay, all right, well, that's okay. And maybe she got bounced off, but she can always speak after. These are just some views of the pictures of the building and surrounding area. So the building at 1174, where the green arrow is on the left-hand side, just so folks can familiarize themselves. Next slide, please. And this is a view from River and Fairmont Ave intersection. So you can see the commercial district that we are in with other neighborhood shops and stores. Next slide, please. That is a front view of the existing conditions of the building. The exterior is going to remain the same. We would only be adding some signage and then interior renovations as well. Next slide, please. And so this is our site plan, which is actually so this shows As you go down the street, we have the ability to pull into the back of the building. So all of our delivery would come in through the back off of River Street. We're only talking probably 1 to 2 deliveries a week. It's a 15-20 minute process to pull up, unload, bring that into the secure facility through our manager. We also have 5 parking spaces in the rear. One of those would be dedicated for drop-off pickup. We would also have the ability for folks that were coming in to park there. We're going to show you some slides close to the MBTA, as well as a bus stop, and also encouraging folks in the neighborhood to walk there, or other modes of transportation. We'll likely have bike storage in the basement, which is part of this facility as well. But all of our product come in through the back of the house through a secured rear entrance. Next slide, please. So this is our floor plan. So as you can see, it involves both the basement level, which is only for the staff. So that would have a break room, that would have vault, storage area, restroom, and that's where the vault that would have money or cash and product would be stored as well. As we go up the first floor, that would be our sales room and our main entrance. Folks would come in through the front door of the building. They would come in and there would be ID checks throughout, but you can see an area that says queuing in order room. That can at least hold about 25 people, not with the us envisioning that there would be that many folks at once at any given time. But it does have the ability, because we know that people always ask, well, where are people going to queue in line? So this space is big enough to allow for a large queuing area, so folks do not have to be outside waiting. The city of Boston also approved recently, or is in the process of finalizing, home delivery. So a number of our sales are going to be through that home delivery when that is allowed, and we would apply to do that as well. And then online deliveries, that really speeds the process up. We're finding that 50% of folks in the Commonwealth are using online sales. So folks can pre-order at home, come in, they still get verified their ID, except they can go right to the cash out area and pick up their product and leave. The exit is through the back of the building as well. Next slide, please. This is our safety and our security plan, which is important. So all patrons of the establishment have to enter through the front entrance. They would be buzzed into the vestibule area and would have security personnel checking them, as we had mentioned earlier. There's strict access control, so all identification cards prior to allowing access to anywhere on the sales floor. And then all patrons would exit through the rear entrance, leading directly to the parking area. The establishment will have primary and secondary security alarms. There'll be cameras both in the inside and the exterior of the facility as well. There'll be a log for anyone visiting, even those picking up or dropping off. All limited access areas will have signage showing those areas. Products will be located in a vault, which we told you would be in the basement in the bottom of the building. All deliveries would be coordinated through the manager and the company that would be delivering product. The parking lot will have lighting, so minimum and motion-based lighting just for additional security. There will be video surveillance that will be present throughout the exterior of the facility. All of the doors and windows, all of that will also be within eyeshot of the cameras. We'll have our security personnel on the inside, but also looking for anything like loitering on the outside. So the area actually has more security than it would normally see. Regular meetings also, so we want to build a good relationship with our local community groups and community members. So these folks had said they want to come at least a few times a year as updates and hear any questions or concerns that folks would have if we're allowed to open. Next slide, please. Again, so this is adult use right now only. We would eventually like to apply for medicinal as well. Medical, it's an expensive proposition, so but we would like to include that at some point. But right now we are seeking adult to start, and that would mean that only individuals 21 years or older would be allowed into the facility. And all visitors to the facility will be over 21 and be registered as part of the CCC regulations. We mentioned that licensed scanners will be used, and those would check all IDs for any kind of a fake ID. Visitors are required to present all valid government approved identification as well. Products will not be marked or packaged to underage patrons. So these are very discreet. Visitors to our website would also have to require and verify that they're 21 years of age as well. All cannabis is tracked, so when it's grown, so they call it from seed to the point of sale, all of that is tracked in our system. Hiring and training will be designed to reduce the potential for product diversion. And then our live feed outdoor cameras, which we also work with the local police departments for any activity that might even be going on in the general area that we can help out. And we find that's been helpful in the past, working with the local police departments as well around our property. Next slide, please. And then just some positive impacts or benefits to the Hyde Park community. So we are going to have some interior reconstruction of the building, also increasing security and safety measures in and around the area, which can help if there was any, crime in and around anywhere across the street or down the street. Now you've got a security presence and you have cameras watching 24 hours. Plans to develop and implement community outreach programs. So these folks are talking about programs that will include food and clothing drives, food banks, and working with community groups and local churches on that. 3% would go to community impact fees as well. And then obviously Sugarloaf Boston wants to be active in the community with boards of trade, main streets, local charities and organizations, and we're all ears. So we're looking for recommendations as we move forward, how we can be an active partner with the community. We have a commitment to hire local talent, and when I say local, I mean directly from the Hyde Park area. We also have a commitment to recruit and retain diverse employees as well. So we want diversity in the workplace. We want to have some workshops for young minority folks across all different kinds of industries and expertise, finance, real estate, cannabis as well. And then we have a priority to use local contractors, suppliers, and vendors. Next slide, please. And then again, this is our diversity inclusion plan, which is very important. So Sugarloaf Boston is committed to creating a diverse workforce and hiring a diverse group of employees, suppliers, and contractors. We want to recruit and retain diverse employees. And as I had mentioned, we are committed to hiring candidates that reflect the demographic of the Hyde Park community and neighborhood. Sugarloaf will adhere to the requirements set in CMR 500.1054, which is relative to the permitted and prohibited advertising, brand, marketing, and practices of marijuana establishment. But we also plan on recruiting and retaining a diverse suppliers of our contractors as well. So any one of our outside vendors and contractors as well. And we want to have at least 50% of them to be minority owned. Any actions taken or programs instituted by Sugarloaf Cannabis will meet all of the CCC, Cannabis Control Commission's regulations to ownership control, meet all the state laws and regulations. Next slide, please. As part of our diversity and inclusion plan, how are we going to achieve this goal of hiring a diverse group? So one, we will create gender neutral job descriptions. We're going to use both local and state groups to work with us to recruit, to help us recruit from, and there's multiple state and city agencies that help you with that. Participating in local hiring events, post-hiring needs on web-based recruitment platforms. We also want to attend community meetings, trade associations, main streets, chambers of commerce to try to get the word out there. We have a goal of 75% of our team to be Boston residents, and also a goal to reflect the makeup, as I had mentioned, in composition of Hyde Park in Boston. A goal of 65% people of color, 50% women, and 20% who have or have parents or spouses with past drug convictions. We intend to have a benefits package that will include health benefits, $18 an hour starting pay, and up, 401k program, paid financial literacy training, as well as paid volunteer time for our employees. Next slide, please. So again, just parking and transportation always comes up, and there's always questions around that. So we're lucky, we're fortunate as part of the lease that we will have 5 dedicated parking spaces. We also are in a commercial district, so there is 2-hour and public parking right around us. This kind of activity is not going to be something like a restaurant that you have pickups and drop-offs every day. You have folks coming in at high points throughout the day. This is minimal impact in terms of folks coming at one time. And we also are fortunate to be near to across the street from an MBTA bus stop, which is directly across the street from us, and then 2 commuter rails within walking distance, Hyde Park and Fairmont, both MBTA, and we're also going to hopefully be hiring so many local and Hyde Park folks that can walk or take bikes to our location as well. And as I had mentioned, as delivery comes and ordering online, the need for parking has gone down. Most of the new locations you're seeing, because there is a requirement right now that 51 to 52 of these be open throughout the city. Most of those don't have parking at all. So we are fortunate to have those spaces as part of this proposal. Next slide, please. So this is just a public transportation map. It just shows the distance, both of the Hyde Park MBTA station and the Fairmount MBTA station, which would allow folks that would be coming to those stops to be able to walk directly to Sugarloaf. Next slide, please. And then again, just our plan for delivery, as I had mentioned, we're talking 1 or 2 times a week, but also in terms of security, this is securely transported to our location, and the product will be transported in unmarked delivery vans. These vans would come in through the delivery area in the back, so away from any traffic. These will not be double parked, come in right through the back at different times during the week, and would be in and out within 20 minutes. Vendors will also use a video intercom and would be dealing with the manager at the receiving door just to know when they're there. Products shall be removed from the containers and go into the electronic inventory system to track all that. They would be placed into the secure storage vault, and only the store manager would receive the inventory. Next slide, please. And again, same, that this is a business that deals heavily in cash. So same thing with the transportation of cash to deliver that on site. Store manager would ensure that cash shall be removed from all registers. They shall capture all sales and transactions during the day. All signage will be placed on the sales floor indicating the staff have no access to the drop safe for cash. It would be only access to the facility manager, and it would be delivered in armored service vehicles. Next slide, please. And again, this just shows you, which we highlighted a little earlier, but exactly where the delivery would take place. So if you came down Way Street off of River, you could pull right in the back of the building, and that green arrow would highlight where the door for drop-off would take place, delivery and drop-off. Next slide, please. And then again, so it's important also to talk about avoiding creating any nuisance. So one, this is located in a neighborhood shopping sub-district. So as more of these locations pop up, it's been harder to find, and the city and both the state has encouraged finding neighborhood shopping or commercial districts. So we're fortunate to have a location in a commercial district, not in a residential district. We're also deliveries, so that can all be made in the rear, which is has the watchful eye of security, as well as our cameras, and is away from any traffic on the street. All of our staff and security will go through a rigorous training program and on all of the operating and security procedures. Obviously, consumption of marijuana on site or in around the area is illegal, and you know, our security personnel would take note if anyone was to do that, and those folks would be banned moving forward from coming to the facility. Local business owners and residents will be given the direct contact information of the ownership team, of the local dispensary manager as well, and they could call us with any concerns or questions that they have as the process moves forward, and any time during the day if there's any concerns or questions that they have. And then again, just to highlight the transportation, where we are getting those 5 off-street parking spaces as well. Next slide. And again, so public consumption is not legal. Any illegal activity on site, littering, loitering would all be taken note, even traffic violations, double parking, and anyone that would be conducting themselves in that manner would be banned from the store. Next slide, please. So at this time, that would conclude the presentation. I know there's been questions in the chat, Danielle, and that we're here to answer any questions however you see fit to moderate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so at this time, we will open the meeting up to any questions, comments, testimony from the public. A reminder, anyone who is joining us via telephone this evening, if you have a question or a concern, just press *3. When you hear 2 beeps, that means that you are unmuted. If you are joining us virtually this evening, if you go to the participant information panel, which looks like a little blue person, click that, scroll down to the lower right-hand corner next to your name. There should be a hand icon. You click that, and your hand will be virtually raised. If you are unable to do that or are having issues, just shoot me or any one of us from the panelists a chat that you have a question or a concern. The first community member that I will go to who left a comment early on in the presentation is Maureen Meyer. So I'm going to go ahead and find Maureen and then unmute her, and then we will move forward as I see hands being raised. Hi, good evening, Maureen. Yep, can you just state for the record if you are an immediate abutter to this proposed dispensary?
I'm not
Meaning
immediate
within 300 feet.
Our business is directly across the street.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So I noticed in your presentation that you didn't mention the community center or the YMCA, which are full of children. There is 45 kindergarten kids at the community center in the UPK program, which is the mayor's initiative. So there are 45 children in there that are kindergartners in that building. And the Y also has a childcare program, and we both do heavy summer programming. And that's not 500 feet, that's directly across the street. One of my staff is actually in your presentation at the bus stop.
Yeah, that's not, so that does not disqualify. I'm just, so it has to actually be a school.
We
so
are
the-
a school.
so
Little
it-
Voices is a school. We're registered with the state as a school.
So programs don't disqualify. We can show you the, offsite. We can email you what the actual language is, but that was actually changed by the Cannabis Control Commission and updated to allow for more of these to come. So there are YMCAs, there's daycares, there's pre-kindergartens, there's school programs, but that doesn't disqualify these from
I
moving.
understand, but in your presentation, it said that you had to be 500 feet away from a kindergarten or a public or private K-1, first to
So
fifth grade. elementary school. So
That's
even
fine.
though we are a private school
Mhm.
and
So
there are
again,
45 little kids in there,
yeah.
and I'm also a resident of Hyde Park, and the square is already a mess.
Well, this is
But
not,
I'm very concerned about the kids. I know where you're directly across the street. I sit on the stairs and look at the property all the time. And like I said, one of my staff members is in your presentation at the bus stop.
sure, but that, again, this is a secure facility. There's no children allowed inside. There's ID identification. There's always daycares. There's always YMCA's in and around the area. But that doesn't mean that we're going to affect them at all. This is adult only. This is like going to a pharmacy to get medication or, cannabis is packaged to not allow children to get it. There's a delivery component, so you'd very unlikely even know that we were there. It's not something that's publicly consumed, but we do want to work with you. So obviously we would love to get your information. If you could put that in the chat and we could meet privately with you or, have a phone call with you or whatever we can do to put your mind at ease.
I can do that, but I just need you to understand that our program is also the mayor's initiative. And, we need to make sure kids are safe as well.
Sure, and we have every intention of making things safer in the area. So with our security cameras, what we find is that we identify crime in the area that other folks may not even be able to see because we have surveillance, we have security personnel on staff, we work directly with the local police department, and I can turn that. It sounds like Rick would probably better to answer these questions since he is our security professional.
I understand. And our families are already up in arms. So I just want to give you that information as well.
Thank you, Maureen. And for anyone who has any questions or concerns regarding the guidelines of the Cannabis Board, I can provide that contact information as well as my contact information to follow up with that as well. Next, I am going to go to Samantha, who had a question in the chat. Samantha Fenton, you are unmuted.
Yeah, no, so I kind of echoed what the first person was talking about. This is like a very where you guys are is very child friendly. Like there's a playground there. There's also many schools that are around the neighborhood also. And just in general, Clary Square is already a mess when it comes to traffic. Is this also gonna continue to bring even more traffic into the neighborhood?
That's a good question. Actually, the reverse is what happens with cannabis establishments. The traffic is very low. So normally, let's just say this is a commercial district. So, this has been approved by the voters in this district. It's been approved by the city of Boston. So these are coming throughout the city and they're encouraged to go in non-residential areas. And I know that sometimes that can be tough and there's always some form of a park or children's programs that might take place. But to answer your transportation question, this has minimal impact because most of the folks that are coming are spread throughout the day. It's not like there's peak times, like a restaurant that serves breakfast or a dinner or establishment or a restaurant. This has minimal delivery, so we're talking once or twice a week for pickup and drop off. That's for our product. You're talking about lower amount of employees. We're encouraging hiring local. We do have a lot of customers take the T, order online, and they're actually going to be starting home delivery, which is going to take away most of the business to drivers who would just deliver. We do have, we're fortunate to have those 5 spots in back, which most of the new cannabis establishment, some do, but most of them do not in these local business districts have 5 dedicated spots or even 1 dedicated spot. And there's going to be enough of these with 52 of these throughout the city that more and more of these are going to become neighborhood use. So someone who lives in Hyde Park isn't going to travel to East Boston to get cannabis, they would go to a Hyde Park store. And if you're in Dorchester, you'd go to your Dorchester store, since they're all priced roughly the same, in the same vicinity. So the idea is, as more of these open, it's going to become neighborhood specific. We do have those pickup drop-off areas, so folks can pull in. It's not a long process to go in there. It's not like shopping in a clothing store or, something where you're going to be picking out items for a long time. You go in, you'd be helped by our staff. If you have any questions, you proceed to the checkout area, and then you immediately leave to your car if you were driving.
Also, just one other question too, and I know that you guys were saying that you guys were gonna be putting up signs and stuff like that. So for also I was saying before, the childcare that's in those areas, I'm not saying are you guys gonna be discreet, but kind of what is that gonna kind of look like? Because also thinking of
Sure.
As a business person,
Yeah.
kind of having people want to come to our schools, the first thing they're going to think about is, oh my gosh, there's a pot shop right across the street,
Well,
how
the only thing, so it's prohibited. You cannot have any weed or cannabis display or any kind of signage that shows that. You have to adhere to those CCC guidelines. So the only thing we would have up is the name of our company and logo. That's it. So it would be very discreet. As a matter of fact, every time I've gone by, even before these came to Boston, when I traveled to Denver for clients, I would walk by most of the storefronts and not know that there was a marijuana shop or a cannabis store that was even there. And I would encourage you to look at around the city some of these that have already been approved and are open. It's just the name of the company.
Yeah.
If possible, I'd like to address maybe the concern about the children that I've heard twice. Is it okay to speak on that, or should I wait?
Sure.
I'm not, I can only imagine what someone said they were up in arms or whatever. I can only imagine the concerns, but I think it's really important that, we all get to know each other, and we're a team of, we're three families that have come together. We're not a big corporation that wants to come in and disregard the most important people in the community, the children. And we're parents and uncles and aunts, and I'm a youth advocate and educator. I've been working with BPS for over a decade. And my biggest concern as a youth advocate and educator and mother is the children. So we will do anything in our power to make sure that those kids are safe. Obviously, anyone in kindergarten is going to be supervised, and they're certainly not going to come across and come in our door. But we would make sure that if there was any congestion that we possibly created, although Attorney Drago has been clear that shouldn't be an issue at all, but we would address those things out of respect for the families and the business people. So just want to, make sure that we understand, that you understand who we are as a group of entrepreneurs that are just trying to, to uplift the whole community and be an asset to the community and a part of it, not to come in and just make money and have a pot shop, because we look at it as a really nice, professionally run, positive asset to the community, not something that we want to be looked at all as a negative. So if you have any questions specific about that, but I just want to make sure that you understand who we are as a group of people coming in to speak with you on this.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, next I'm gonna go to Morgan. Morgan Gaffney, you should be unmuted. Do you still have a question? Morgan? Okay, I'll come back to Morgan. The next hand, I'm going to go down the list that I see is Andrew. So Andrew, your hand is raised. I'm going to unmute you.
Hi.
Hello. Are you, if you could just state if you are an immediate abutter, and I mean within 300-foot radius of the property.
I
Okay,
am not.
thank you.
But I am a Hyde Park resident and grew up
you.
in Mattapan, so I know the neighborhoods pretty well. Well, first I was wondering, could you put something useful on the screen? Because the Q&A thing is not helpful. Like maybe the chart of the facility or something, you know, the diagram. Yeah, my question is about traffic control. It just, you know, I've watched what happened in Brookline, and the traffic was pretty crazy. And it still is. There's full-time details around that facility. So I know you're saying it's not going to be too bad, but it's kind of hard to believe that if you look at what happened in Brookline. And then I've been to other openings and then gone back to the facility, you know, weeks later, still pretty crazy traffic. So just wondering if you could address that. And if you have something, a screen maybe that could show us how you're going to address that.
Well, I don't think we have a screen. I mean, again, I don't know. I can't attest to the Brookline. You know, I believe that's the only one in that area in Brookline, but I can speak to the different clients I represented in Boston. And I don't know if you have been by places like Happy Valley or the three that are in East Boston or Alston, Brighton. None of these have had those traffic issues. Dorchester. So I think we would have to be compared to the city of Boston, because in Boston, we have so many more than some of these other municipalities. And that just hasn't been the case. Again, beyond that, I can tell you that, you know, the voters overwhelmingly in Hyde Park and around Boston did support it. So the city is required to have, you know, 51 of these locations. When we get to that point, the novelty is really wearing off, where folks just aren't going to all go to one location that's open in Boston. Like in Brookline, there's only the one. Maybe that's what's causing more of the traffic. But in Boston, it's becoming more neighborhood specific. They've been approved in the North End. They've been approved in Charlestown now, East Boston, Alston, Brighton, Dorchester, even West Roxbury.
Just so you know, I'm a former executive director from one of the Main Street programs. So
Sure.
I'm
And
really familiar with the process that has happened here.
So then you know that the one that's been approved in Hyde Park, there is one not, you know, over the distance, but a mile away or so down the street. So again, that alone is going to divert people from going to one location. We just have not seen it. There hasn't been that traffic. And again, let's just assume you put something else here, a restaurant or a retail store. It's going to have at least the same, if not more traffic and more deliveries.
Okay, can I ask one other follow-up question?
Sure.
That intersection where there are 2 stop signs and no stop sign, the 3-way intersection that you're going to be right beside. Are you familiar with it? Where River Street turns a corner basically, and it becomes Fairmount Ave.
Yeah.
Are there any plans to change that traffic system the way it works currently? Because the 2 stop signs and the no stop sign seem to have tenuous safety as it is.
So I can't, that's more of a city question. I don't know. It's a transportation question. I think that, you know, that wouldn't be specific to a cannabis establishment, but sounds more like some public safety or transportation with BTD. That I can't answer.
So you guys haven't really, there's no connection between you guys and transportation or other parts of the things that are affected by you? So if you're asking me. I'm asking in your process, have you been communicating with transportation and?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. No. That's it. Thank you.
I was muted that whole time. Sorry. Thank you, Andrew. The next hand that I see raised is from a caller. So I can't read this number, but once I unmute you, you will hear 2 beeps. If you could just state your name
Hi.
Hi, good evening. Hi, did you have a question? I will go back to that caller and check in with them via the chat. Next person that I see that has their hand raised is Connor. Connor, I'm going to unmute you.
Hi, my name's Connor. I'm not a direct abutter, but I live down the street on Arlington River Street. So like, I walk by that empty store all the time. And I just want to say this proposal, it's crazy. It should not be approved. The traffic and parking will be a nightmare. The traffic right now in Cleary Square is a nightmare. It backs up to the light all the way back to where the store is around 3 o'clock every day for like 2 hours. And in the morning, it's crazy too. And now you're talking about doing home delivery. You're going to have like all these Amazon trucks going out from there. You're talking even more car trips than just having a retail only store. Hyde Park, I mean, the zoning code requires 2 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. This store should have at least 12 parking spaces. And you're talking about there's going to be up to 25 people working there along with up to 25 customers. That's 50 cars. And where are all these cars going to go? And it's crazy. There's the parking and the traffic in Cleary Square is awful. And this store, it's not going to work for the neighborhood, and the traffic is just going to be crazy. And all these people are going to work, and who's going to bring marijuana on a bus or a train? It's way too valuable. You're going to drive there, and you're going to get it, put it in your car, and drive home. I mean, I know I've never taken a bus to a dispensary. It's way too valuable. So it's way too many cars. It's crazy.
Thank you, Connor. Does anyone from the team want to address that? If not, we can keep moving.
I think
forward.
we've talked about, a lot about transportation. Appreciate the comment.
Can I just add quickly, if I may? There's the large municipal parking lot just a few minutes down the street. We would, needless to say, have staff park there if they drove. A lot, I think, won't drive because they'll be residents of the area. And also the bank, the Rockland Trust, they have about 4 or 5 spaces that the community can use. We wouldn't suggest it necessarily, but that is another spot. So there's more parking than I think that you're aware of that we have been looking into.
Yeah, and this location, I just want to point out, has more parking than most of the locations that have been approved in the city.
And I like to point out that they're not opening to 10 a.m. So that morning rush will not, they will not be involved with that.
Okay, next up, I'm going to go to Helena Tung. Helena, you should be unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to throw in a couple of quick questions because I arrived late. What is the hours of operation for this establishment? I heard they're opening at 10. What time are they closing?
9 p.m. is proposed. That's pretty
Okay.
standard.
What is the zoning for the close?
I'm sorry?
Is the zoning for 9 p.m. or is that your preferred time?
So it's not, so that wouldn't have anything to do with zoning. That would be the licensing board. So
Okay.
how this works, just so you'll be familiar with it, is that if we were to be approved by the Boston Cannabis Board,
Okay.
that would be memorialized and written into a host community agreement that we would have to abide by.
Okay.
It's at their discretion.
So you haven't been approved by BCB yet, as of yet?
No,
Okay.
This all happens prior.
So just a quick question. The parking for the establishment is in the back of the building, that parking lot in the back, the 5 spaces that you...
Right. So of course we could use any public parking outside, folks like any residential business, but we have 5 dedicated spaces in the back.
Okay, just to build up to that question. So you have 5 dedicated spaces. That's a pretty busy parking lot back there, as well as the Muni parking lot is pretty busy. And I don't think it's fair to assume that the private parking for Rockland Trust should be considered. I mean, it's there. I'm a Rockland Trust banker,
Yep.
so I'm just going to leave that part there because I want to get to my question. You don't have a set time for delivery for the cannabis, correct?
So the way this works is it's 1 to 2 times a week. And just for safety protocols, you change that up. So it'd be different times throughout the day. And Rick, I can let you explain better as to why they do that.
Yes, my name is Rick Nagel. I'm a security consultant. What's going to happen is we go during non-business hours, so we don't impede the flow with the people coming into the establishment. So the deliveries will be made before the hours of operation. It's one vehicle. It's a nondescript vehicle. They're in and out, as Jeff alluded to earlier. They're about 10, 15 minutes. That's all they take. And we'll have a designated spot for them. So their deliveries will be prior to opening, and it'll always be during daylight hours.
Okay, and one last question that I have is that, shucks, I forgot where I was going with this question. It just eluded me. Let me just see here. Give me a quick second. All right, the deliveries. Okay, yes. So we have 5 schools within the area, and we know that they're not within 500 feet, except for, I'm going to leave on the table for the first question that was presented. And I hope you all do get back to that neighbor and really work out the details in regards to if she's considered a school that you consider her concerns. So we have 500, we have 5 schools within less of a quarter mile of this establishment. And some of these, proposed dispensary meetings that I've gone to, that they've said that between this hour and this hour, we're going to close as to make sure that nothing that is being purchased, I see that you're saying 21 years of age and up, ID, whatever, has been passed off to students. We have 5 schools less than a quarter mile from here. So my question is, that is something that I would strongly propose. And I would strongly, really, really highly propose that you all consider that for at least 1 hour. All of these schools tend to get out at the same time. So if you have a 1 hour which your establishment is closed when those kids are getting out of school, I would feel a little bit more comfortable for that. And I would actually really hard push for that. And
do you know what hour? I'm sorry. Do you know what hour that? Do you know what hour that would be? Just so we have it.
Actually, I can send, if you, Danielle, if you send me his email, I'll send all the details. Predominantly because these schools are MBTA students. So we're talking about 2,500 students. Roxbury Prep is right up the street, as you know. So again, I'm going to push really hard for that to happen. And I can't think of anything off the top. If I do, I'll raise my hand again. But thank you for answering those questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, I'll share the contact information with you as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, did I cut anybody off from the team?
This is Rick, security consultant. I had an issue like this with another proposed dispensary in Boston. The concern was the attendees of Fenway Park leaving and maybe walking by the establishment. So what we did for the community is we said that we'd put an extra security staff and we'd put them outside. And maybe that's something this team would consider during those peak hours, that we'll have security out there to make sure there's a safe and efficient flow of the children going by.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, next I'm going to go to Jim Kirker. Jim, you are unmuted.
Hi, sorry, I'm late to this. I just wanted to say that, one of the things that happens is with all this building and these kind of things that are going on is that everybody just sort of takes into account, as far as parking and all that, their individual building. Just so you know, we had over 2,000 units coming into Hyde Park, planned for Hyde Park, you guys. And a lot of them are on Cleary Logan Square. So you guys are not the only people that are going to be adding parking problems to this area. So just so you know that, that people are talking about parking and you guys are kind of like, well, we're going to have enough room, etc. You're only one part of the problem. So if you could think about that, I do know that Sean Birdie and them, they actually are going to rent a parking lot. The Sean Birdie is they're the place down by on Hyde Park Ave. They are going to rent a parking lot and actually bus some of their customers. They're going to have a small bus coming to their shop to help alleviate those problems. So I would hope that you guys would consider something like that. You really, it's not just you with the parking problem. It's literally, you know, 2,000, I believe the count is 2,000 apartments coming into this area. So I would hope that you would try to plan for something like that. I'm also curious, my question, that's just a statement. My question is this: who is backing you guys? Who do you have a large corporation backing you, or are you guys just kind of independent? How is this? Where are you getting the funding, I guess, is what I'm asking. I'm sorry if you gave this before, I came in late, so, but I am curious as to where you're getting your money to set this all up.
So the one of the partners, which is Irene Hicks, she is actually my mother-in-law, and we are not backed by anybody. She's using her funds to fund this project, and that's how we're going through this process.
I'm sorry, what was your name again? Sorry.
My name is Flavia.
No, what was the backer's name?
Irene Hicks.
Okay.
So
Yeah, so we don't have any like big corporation behind us. It's just like a small family, you know, local business owners. We're getting together, putting together our resources to see if we can move forward in a process. We've been learning a lot. We're trying to work with the community. It's a new industry for everybody, and I see, you know, a lot of opportunities that our business can try to remediate, you know, with the neighbors around us, so we can make sure that we do a good job and everybody, you know, it's working together. And this is a win-win situation. We're not trying to, you know, disturb the neighborhood in any sort.
Okay, so can I do a follow-up? Danielle, I've lost you, I think. Can I do a follow-up question, Danielle? Or?
Yep, no problem.
So, again, you know, I worked with Sean Birdie and Armani for their dispensary on, I don't know if you knew what was going on, but there was a huge corporation trying to come in. But one of the things that Sean had promised me is some stuff to help the community. I'm just curious, again, if you've already gone over this, I'm sorry if you know, I came in late. What are you offering this immediate community, not Boston in general, but Hyde Park, Cleary, Logan Square, as far as helping this community get some things they need? For instance, we have a theater on down the street from you, where you guys gonna set up shop that needs an elevator. Are these the kind of things that you would be looking into to give to this community? Because I mean, you really are going to create problems. There's no doubt about that. Is traffic, parking, that stuff. But what sort of things are you guys looking into as far as paying back the community and helping this community with things we need? Anybody?
So yeah, we've been looking to see which local nonprofits or charities that need support, and then we would be able to help as well. We've been reaching out. Lynn specifically has been walking around the neighborhood, and she's been, you know, trying to get to know some of the neighbors and see what the needs are, so we can address that. If you can also leave your contact information if you have any ideas of any nonprofits or any, you know, thing that we could be helping the neighborhood, that'll be a really good opportunity for us to get in touch and also to see how beneficial we can be for the community as a whole.
Okay.
And in some of our earliest slides, we had listed this. I know you came a little bit late, but wanting to give back and working with civic associations, training programs for kids. But really, this is our first public meeting, so we're all ears. We're really looking to take information back.
Great. And one more question. Sorry, Danielle. Are you guys going to be coming to the local neighborhood associations, for instance, Hyde Park Neighborhood Association, that sort of thing? You won't be able to do, tomorrow is the next one. That's a little too late for you guys to sign up. But are you guys going to be going to like the Hyde Park Neighborhood Association meeting in October to present and that sort of thing?
So there's so many groups, obviously, in Hyde Park. We reach out, the way this works, we reach out to the mayor's office. The mayor's office gives us recommendations of which groups sort of are in the purview. So I know we've reached out, we've met with the Main Streets already today. This is our public meeting. And then we've reached out to 2 other civic associations. I don't remember which ones, but yes, the answer is yes. And if there's others that folks want us to come to, we would be more than happy.
Okay, yeah, because Hyde Park Neighborhood Association is the one that's in this area, so maybe you've reached out to Mimi Churchinitz. That's the person you would be reaching out to.
I know Mimi, we used to work for the city together for years, but my assistant in getting the list from Danielle reached out to 2. I know that. One put us on an agenda either for later in the month or next month, and then we were waiting to hear back from the others. So I just don't have that.
Did you give them HPNA, Danielle?
Yeah, so Kirk, they have actually the full list of all of our neighborhood associations. So they're gonna go through their list of the closest within the radius to their proposed dispensary, and then reach out to others that they'd like to present at or go to any meetings as well. But they
Okay, great. Thank you very much, guys, and I wish you good luck. I think that you know, as long as you're paying back and helping the neighborhood with stuff we actually need, I actually I wish you good luck. I hope the traffic stuff and the parking stuff works out. But again, you may consider what Sean Birdie and those guys are doing, and that is renting out a parking area and having a small bus. But anyways, good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next, we're going to go to Kathleen. Kathleen, I am unmuting you. Hi, Kathleen, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I'm not an abutter exactly, but I own a business on River Street at 1193. So as much as Mr. Drago doesn't want to hear it, I have yet further issues with parking as much as traffic in the area. He mentions that there's the 2-hour parking for businesses. There's so many people that come into our district and they'll park their cars directly in front of my shop and they'll be there all day. We have a lot at the back of our shop, which most people don't find, but some do. And there's mornings I come into work where I can't park in my own lot because of the people that are already parked there. Likewise, the bank I do business with, which is immediately adjacent to this proposed business, they have a lot that abuts the small 5-car lot. Their lot is considerably bigger. It does comfortably accommodate their customers now, but I see a spillover coming from the dispensary into their lot, and then customers of the bank will find the same thing I do at my business. They'll come in to do business and there won't be any space for them. So it's just, I have nothing against the business per se, but I just think the parking situation at the juncture of Fairmont Ave and River Street is just, it's untenable right now. And I only see it worsening. I'm sorry, Mr. Drago. I know you don't want to talk about it, but it's a fact of life. We live it. We live it 5, 6, sometimes some of us 7 days a week, and there is no abatement.
Yeah. So and we hear you. Parking, you know, overall seems to be an issue for the area. All I can say is we're trying. So, and this is a commercial spot. So let's just say Sugarloaf was not coming to this establishment, but it was going to be a restaurant, or it was going to be a bar, or it was going to be retail. That's going to drive the need for parking. What we can say is we've got different hours. Our flow is not going to hit at one time. So it's spread throughout the day. Things like home delivery with one vehicle dedicated for that, not multiple, but one vehicle, alleviates a large piece of that. And these just traditionally around the city have not generated the kind of traffic that I know folks fear. And I know Brookline was mentioned, but I would encourage everyone to take a look at some of the ones that have opened in Boston, like Patriot Care in downtown Boston, or Happy Valley in East Boston, Alston, Brighton, Dorchester. These are going to keep popping up throughout the city because they have to in commercial districts, and they're going to function like any small retail shop. It's just, and eventually it's going to be to the point where there's enough of these where folks would walk to the one or quickly come in and out of the one that's closest to their home, where folks aren't flooding from other areas. That's the best answer I can give you.
Well, I appreciate that as far as the on-street, quote unquote, non-existent 2-hour parking, I can't expect you to police that. That's the job of the Boston Police Department. But I am concerned about the bank I do business with and their private lot. You
So
know,
we can't,
who's gonna police the overflow? You know, people are gonna take advantage of it. It's right there. It right literally abuts your little lot.
but
It's
we do
just-
have security personnel that can take care of that. So the one thing that we have that most retail places would not is dedicated staff that are handling issues like double parking, loitering, parking where they're not supposed to, and we can make them leave. And if they are flagrant abusers, we can ban them from the store, which is commonplace.
Well, okay, if it works, I'm just a little skeptical, but I
Sure.
thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I'd just like to add that I've actually spoken with a manager at the bank. And so they're aware of our proposal and they don't have an issue with it. We feel that we can have a very cooperative, cordial relationship, and thus far it has been.
Well, that's good because I know in the past there have been other businesses on Fairmont Avenue and abused the use of that lot. You know, the bank at first went along with them because they thought they had an agreement like with you folks.
Yeah.
And it became a nightmare. But better luck to you guys, I guess I'd have to say.
Well, we're trying, you know, we appreciate what you're saying. We know that these all can be issues, but we plan to do the best we can to be as positive and an asset to the community, not a liability, you know, and have good neighbors and be
Oh,
good
yeah.
neighbors.
No, life in the big city isn't always easy.
Thank you, Kathleen. Okay, next we're gonna go to, one second, let me just mute Kathleen, there we go. Up next, we're going to someone under the name of M. M, I'm gonna unmute you if you could just state your name.
Sure. My name is Megan. I'm a Hyde Park resident and homeowner, and I have a number of concerns. I think for one, in reference to the frequent security mentions, there's something that's really been glossed over. As I understand it, this is an all-cash business that credit card companies do not want to touch. That's a very known high risk for armed robbery for both cash and products in the facility and in the area with deliveries. That's extremely concerning as a resident of the area, that you're inviting more opportunities for crime. Studies in Colorado have found that burglary and theft increased by nearly 20% in areas where recreational dispensaries were set up. As has already been cited, this is less than 500 feet from an excellent daycare, pre-kindergarten program, and the YMCA. These are the true assets to our community. And I really understand your citation of the 500-foot buffer zone, but you're really sticking with the letter of the law and not paying attention to the spirit of the law and why it's there. And this should really be upsetting to other residents on the call that this is the approach that you're taking in barreling into the community. I think a few other things that haven't been mentioned related to traffic. I think there's also a concern of impaired drivers coming in and around the area where children are going to be walking in a congested area, as well as leftover products being discarded in the area that children are walking in regularly. We already know what it looks like with nips and bottles being discarded. And there are plenty of industrial areas that are not located next to schools and daycares and playgrounds that should be much more appealing to the community than what's being proposed here. And I have no problem printing placards and signs and assigning our local representatives accountability for allowing this to happen in our neighborhood. Thank you.
You know, if I can address some of those security issues, if I may. Again, I'm a security consultant. I've been doing this since 2013. In regards to an all-cash business, this will not be an all-cash business. And Flavia can expand on that. In regards to how it's going to work, again, as you know, it's a highly regulated industry. We're going to have cameras 24/7, 365. But what's important here is that all our product in the cash, there'll be frequent depletion of cash on a regular basis. So there won't be much cash left there. At night, there'll be no product on the floor, or there'll be no cash on the floor. So there'll be, if someone even attempts to break in, they're not going to get anything. The most they'll get is a picture on the wall by the time the alarms go off, and the motion detectors and vibration detector, et cetera, et cetera. They're not going to get anything. During the day, we're going to have trained security. They're not only going to be inside, they'll be frequently going outside. They'll be reporting. We're going to ask Boston Police if they want, from the construction phase all the way through, for their input. That includes diversion in transportation, et cetera. As in regards to Colorado, just in the paper today, Colorado's looking at, because of their robberies, is putting their product in a vault at night. This is something we're going to do from the beginning. And I think, to me, common sense dictates you don't leave any product out at night. So this will be secure. And we will have the security cameras going 24/7, 365. And if there's any incident, not only there, but in this community, the police know that they will have access to our security equipment. Hope that answers that one question.
So can you be more specific on your language was a little unclear. Do you accept credit cards? Because my understanding was credit cards are not permitted. Are you talking about cash and debit cards?
Flavia, why don't you expand on that with you?
It's cash and debit cards.
Right.
Credit cards are not allowed. There's some new systems that are coming in into the market that you will be able to use a credit card that's linked to a different account. But that's something that it's new, and I'm waiting to see how reliable that's going to be. So for the meantime, it's going to be only cash and debit cards. And also, we're going to have ATM in the facility, so people are also allowed to use their debit card, not just in the cashier with us, but also withdraw money and pay at the same time.
Also, what's important in regards to the cash is what I recommend is we're going to do frequent cash sweeps, which means there's not going to be much cash in the till. So the cash will be locked up in a vault. For someone to break in and go in the vault, it's going to be minutes upon minutes upon minutes, and all kinds of alarms are going to be going off. So debit cards will be used at banks. We find out, even though it's the federal government is not on board, there's some banks that are coming on board that are working with the industry. So I notice anyway, I've been involved since 2013. It's loosening up a little bit in regards to being an all cash business.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Thank you, Flavia. Thank you, Megan. Next, we're going to go to Mackenzie. Mackenzie, you are unmuted.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I want to say, first of all, that I'm a great supporter of the decriminalization of marijuana. And I have a lot of concerns about the specific location of this dispensary, regarding its nearness, proximity to schools and other places where children, go by every day. And so I understand that it's not going to be like weed is us signs, but also I think it's something that we need to think about, that it, like that in some way for our children, it normalizes using marijuana, which I'm not sure is what we would really like to do. Although, as a like, again, I fully support decriminalization. If you want to smoke weed, but I don't think we want that message to go to our children that it's okay. And as Megan was just saying, I think that there are lots of areas in Hyde Park where we would welcome this business, where it is not so immediately proximate to important community institutions like the Muni and the YMCA and the library. And then also I do agree with all of the people who have been complaining about how it's going to impact traffic and parking, which admittedly is not your problem because we have that already. So just to have a think about the message that we're sending to kids by having this kind of a business in such an integral area in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Yeah.
If I could respond, go ahead. Attorney Drago, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just, and I understand what you're saying. As more of these are being approved, you can't put these, and the CCC and the city will not allow these to go into these hidden industrial areas that are away from public transportation, away from the public eye. That's really not the goal. The goal is to get these into commercial districts, and there are some children's programs that do happen. There's neighborhood parks in almost every area within 500 feet. And that's why they changed the regulations to not where people, to where children congregate, because everywhere you look, there is some kind of a YMCA, there is some kind of a preschool program. So they had to change that and update it, or we were never going to get to the mandate of the 51. I can tell you that one, we're in a commercial district. We do have some parking. I know parking is an issue, but it's not going to make it any greater than if this was a restaurant with deliveries or anything like that. It's actually going to be less than that, because as more of these open, you're just going to see, and you don't have to take my word for it. Check out any of the ones that I had mentioned in Boston now, and you just don't see a line, you don't see a queue, you don't see traffic. And so I know there is a stigma with it, but it is a retail location in a retail business that's zoned for retail and neighborhood shopping districts. So we will do everything we can to work with any of these establishments like the YMCA or the after school programs or the kindergarten programs in and around the area. But everywhere where you look, there is a high school within a mile, there's a YMCA, there's a library, because it isn't a commercial district. So our signage is going to be discreet. You're not going to know that there's marijuana in there. There is no public consumption. People are going to come out with a bag that doesn't have anything on it. And then again, a lot of this is going to go into home delivery. It's going to be ordered online. Folks are going to come in and out, and there just has not been these issues in the Boston locations. You haven't seen this sort of criminal enterprise happening on the street, loitering, public consumption. It's just not there. But we want to work with everyone. I'm sorry, and you can take over. I just wanted to get that in.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Attorney Drago is saying, we feel the same way. We're not trying to promote, youth, smoking pot or whatever, but it is going to be very discreet. The young ones won't know, what it is. If the older ones figure it out, it's a very legitimate business. And I believe, and I'm saying this as a mom and a teacher, educator for decades, and a youth activist, that I would rather have a classy, professional, highly secured as a bank company than a liquor store, a tacky package store where people that are inebriated are walking in and out, and teenagers can go in and buy chips. I just think, I understand. I think we're all sensitive to your concerns, but we're trying very, very much to make it be a positive, not a negative, and to assuage those kinds of concerns about young people.
Thank you. Next, we are going to
thumbs up. That's all I'm saying. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Next, we're going to go to Mark. Mark, you are unmuted.
Hi there. So I'm Mark McKinnon. I'm a senior vice president for your next door neighbor, the Commonwealth Cooperative Bank. And I think it was Lynn or somebody that said they spoke to a bank manager already, and that we didn't have a problem with parking, and that is total news to me. So I'm not sure when that conversation took place or with whom. However, so the access to the 5 spaces that you have behind the building, I guess I would ask how many of you have actually gone and looked at that parking lot and seen what those 5 spaces supposedly look like? because I could tell you right now, 2 of them are taking up dumpsters from the restaurant or the 2 restaurants that are next door. And then there's also access to the Rincon restaurant behind there, which looks to be where you're going to try to make your deliveries or your drop off and pickups. So I don't think you really have 5 spaces. You maybe have 1.5 tops in reality. And again, I'm just speaking because I'm there every day. And, you know, and we certainly do have severe concerns because that same access, what you call Way Street, which is actually not a public road, it's actually a private way, which is jointly owned between your landlord and our bank. And it is our primary access to our 2-lane drive-up teller behind your building in our bigger parking lot for our customers. So when you talk about creating additional traffic up and down that driveway, and not to mention people who use that as a cut through between River Street and Davison, even though it's not a public road, you wouldn't know it. So if you're expecting your customers to park behind your building and then walk down the driveway without taking their life in their hands to go in through your front entrance, I think you need to kind of have a reality check there. We do have a very large parking lot behind there, and we have serious concerns that overflow is going to start impeding on that. And there has been no discussion with senior management, I can tell you, with anybody from the proposed owner of this business. You know, and that aside, you're also talking about how many employees you have. I don't know where they're parking either. You know, we already have an issue with people thinking we're a municipal lot, and it's not a municipal lot, it's a private lot. So I know Kathy had spoken earlier because she is a customer of ours and a business owner in the square, and she is 100% right. The traffic in the square, the parking in the square, the assumption that yes, there is quote unquote 2-hour parking, you know, it's just not a reality. And I would highly recommend, you know, that if you really haven't walked around the square during the day, walk around the square during the day, and you're going to see what a nightmare this probably really is going to create. And you know, it can't be blocking up the access to our drive-through. It can't be having customers or your customers or other people or employees taking up our customer parking spots in our parking lot. So we have serious concerns about that. I'll also reiterate what everybody else has said here about the fact that I see little kids getting dropped off for kindergarten at the Muni every morning. And, you know, I know you're saying the letter of the law says, well, it's not technically a kindergarten. You know, I think that's just legal talk. Quite frankly, I think that's just not what the spirit of the law meant. And if you care to go that route, then that kind of tells me a little bit about what your approach is going to be. So I guess what are your plans, and what have you really seen, and how many of you actually gone there, I guess is the question, to see what the reality of this is today. And not to mention that Rincon, the Caribbean restaurant that abuts this parking lot too, that uses this for delivery, probably has 4 or 5 cars double parked every day in that lot. So if you're going to have an issue there, trying to get those quote unquote 5 dedicated parking spots and then get rid of the 3 dumpsters that maybe don't belong there, but are there today.
Well,
And okay, go ahead, Jeff. You want to go first?
yeah. So I think this is a proposed location, so those parking spaces are not part of our parking spaces now. So the dumpsters would be moved because we would be paying for those spaces that would be dedicated to us. Second, that private way is for a drive-through. It's an access route, which we would have rights to, just as you would have rights to.
Correct.
And I don't know why you would assume our customers would abuse the parking situation. These are people that are coming in for 15 minutes to park there and leave, just as your customers are coming in and parking in your lot. So are you saying that none of your customers would ever park on the other lot, but only our customers would park on the bank lot? Because that's just
correct.
Yeah,
correct. I see it every day. I'm telling you right now.
Okay. Well, we don't have wait a minute. We don't have a location there though. So second of all, we would have security personnel monitoring, which most any other business would not have, as I had mentioned, to prevent things like illegal parking, loitering, any kind of a consumption outside. so that could be addressed when another business wouldn't have that luxury. Two, we would be less impactful than another retail type of location. And I don't know if you've ever seen any of the other locations in Boston, but I would encourage you to go drive and look at them.
I have indeed. And I'm not doubting that a restaurant would be just as bad. And I can tell you that, there are many other businesses in the area at night, restaurants and other places that end up using our parking lot, without our permission. But after hours, we kind of turn a blind eye to it. But during banking hours, we want our customers to be able to have a place to park. And I can tell you, even with the Rincon restaurant, it is a constant struggle, and it will be a bigger struggle for you to think you're going to get those 5 spots. I'm just giving you guys a reality check about what's there day to day, and there's a reason why this building has sat vacant for 2.5 years, because no one else goes in there and thinks that they can make a viable go of it with the limited parking that's around. So, I'm not opposed to your business, but I am opposed to what I think is going to become a parking nightmare for us. And unless you're going to tell me that you're going to take your security personnel and police my parking lot, then great. If you're going to do that for us, then I'll probably have no problem. But I just don't necessarily believe that's going to be the case.
Well, we do a lot of that in other locations. So many clients work out an agreement with a neighbor that may have concerns about shared parking or illegally parking on someone's lot. But that is exactly what our security personnel, when they walk the perimeter, would be looking for, especially if there's an ongoing issue in the area and we have cameras on the building and tracking all the stuff. So absolutely, we want to work with you on improving, not making it more of a negative impact.
Right. Well, I guess I would turn the question back to, I don't know if it was Lynn or whoever it was that said they spoke to the manager and said we had no problem with parking. Who'd you speak to?
No. I'm sorry if that was a misunderstanding. That's not what I said, what I meant. Since last.
Well, it is what you said. No, it is what you said.
I know what
I wrote it down as you said it.
Well, if I could please just speak on this.
Sure.
And bear with me. I just got out of a major surgery, so I'm a little tired. Last winter, I spent a lot of time doing mostly the community outreach work, meeting the business owners and the residents as much as possible. And we saw your parking lot, obviously. And I believe you when you say that it's full a lot, but we never saw it very full at all. And so, and we were even, and I'm not saying you're wrong, your own parking lot, but this was our experience, and it was purely innocent and trying to just get information as to how we could work things out in a good way. But I even went there after hours when it was dark out, and there were people parked there that it looked like they were overnight. And so I got the impression that maybe because you have such a big parking lot, that maybe you rented spaces. So it was a very innocent, friendly call just to see if you would be open to renting any spaces if we were to move in. And the man, and I don't have his name in front of me, it was last winter, but the man that I spoke with said that you were not interested in, that was fine, that we were looking for space and that we were there, but that you were, your bank was not interested in renting any spaces. So that's what my comment was meant to portray. I don't know if it came off that way, but that's exactly what.
That's not what it sounded like. But I guess in my mind, when you talk about community outreach, we are like literally your closest abutter, other than the tenants that'll be in the building with you, and we share the driveway and whatnot. I would have thought there would have been some outreach conversation or whatnot with us, other side from a phone call about renting parking spaces, to have some discussions in advance of this. But but that didn't happen.
But it normally is not. So normally this is the beginning of the
That's
process, especially with COVID. So
we
can't just go banging on doors and like we used to, and again, these community meetings would have been done in person. Everything is mandated to be now on a Zoom WebEx platform. So
no, and I get that. I get
and
that. Do all the cities and towns.
And if you allow me, I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One thing that we've been thinking about actually is for the first month or so, we would start with appointments only and see how the how the flow goes. And if there's any issue later on, once we are open to the public, if there's any issues regarding to that, then we can definitely make adjustments. And having those 5 parking spots, I know that you said there's somebody else using that, and one of the reasons why is because the building is being vacant, so the landlords not making an issue out of this, because we're trying to be good neighbors as well. However, if that space gets rented for our business, or I would say any other business, that would definitely be something that would have to take a look at it deeply, and also take action to make sure that everybody involved is understanding of its limitations, since the space has been vacant for a while, like you said.
Right,
and so
right.
Having those appointments outside will alleviate as well traffic. And in addition to that, like Jeff mentioned earlier, there's also home delivery licenses that are being starting like past few months. So that would be something that we can also use into our favor, because instead of having so many customers coming into our stores, we would have our own delivery service, which would alleviate so many customers coming into the store.
So can someone just clarify for me, how many employees do you envision working in the building at the same time, and where are they going to park?
So in the beginning, we are planning to have between six and 8 people at one time, and that includes also security. We plan to have, once we get more established and we have a higher demand, then we'll increase that amount. And we are trying to work with the community to get most of our employees from abutters locally, because that would also make sure that we don't have issues in regards to parking, because one of our goals it is to work and with the community, and also make sure that we give the opportunity who is directly affected positively or negatively from our business, but trying to make everything being positive as it comes out.
Okay. Well, I wish you luck in attracting people who don't need to drive to work. I can tell you, how crowded it gets in front of my bank, because the bus stop is right down there already. And a lot of school kids are out there. And I know there's a bunch of people that have talked about, the students and whatnot. And there are high school kids and middle school kids and whatnot taking the bus right in front of my bank, which is 50 feet from your building. So just, bear that in mind. And again, I think you need to consider the safety issue for your potential customers. If they're going to be parking behind your building, people use that, like I said, they use Way Street as a cut through between Davison and River Street, and they're not obeying any speed limits when they do it. So I can't tell you how many near misses and near head-on crashes we've had in that year over year. And now you're going to have pedestrian traffic going from your back parking lot potentially to your front door. Don't be surprised if you have a real safety issue there, is all I'm saying. So the forewarned is forearmed.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, up next, I have more hands, but I'm just gonna circle back to Andrew just because I want to be respectful of everyone's time and he has to jump to a meeting. So Andrew, I'm gonna unmute you to ask your final question.
Yes, thanks. First, I have a couple of comments and then a quick follow-up question. And I'll try to be brief, but my blood's boiling right now, so it's going to be hard to be brief. So I think it's offensive, frankly, appalling that you would say the public voted this in this forum. Are you kidding me? This forum is made for all of us. You are going to be in a community that encompasses all of us. And by the way, I voted for it to come in. I agree. And I'm really psyched to hear this, families that are, coming together to make a business. It all sounds really wonderful. What does not sound wonderful is your complete and appalling lack of knowledge about the safety of this area and the traffic flow. Lynn, you are wrong. That's not you. I would love to say Yeah, sometimes, there's open spaces. I'm sorry, Lynn. I don't know what you were seeing, but you're wrong. That that lot is a mess. It's a brutal. Parking in the area is brutal. But I really wish you would understand that this forum, and I think BPDA does an awesome job with this stuff. This forum is for all of us. It's not for those who voted. And by the way, I'm one that voted. But you should not, that is terrible rhetoric. And if you keep doing it, I don't think you're going to get very far. But the big thing is safety, and traffic. And if I had to vote right now, I'd vote you guys in. I'm really excited about it. I think you sound really good. You sound pretty legit. Your presentation's awesome, but your lack of knowledge about traffic and parking is stunning right now. And so my question is really to BPDA, which maybe it's Denyel can answer this.
Andrew, we can probably follow up.
Well, let me just ask the question.
Yeah, go
real
ahead.
quick. Do you guys require organizations like this to interact with like public safety and transportation? Because transportation's a great organization. I've dealt with them quite a bit. I was just wondering it from a BPA and process perspective. Are these guys, why aren't they connected, or are they? I got the impression from Jeff that they are not.
So as they go through their process, we can connect in terms of if transportation needs to be involved and how they would be involved in getting you the proper contact and information for that.
Okay.
Right now, again, this is just an initial outreach meeting regarding their
Thank
proposal.
you guys so much for listening to that commentary. I'm a supporter. I just think you shouldn't say things that aren't true, number one, and you should respect that we all have different perspectives. Thank you, and good luck.
Yeah, and I have to obviously
Thanks,
respond.
Andrew.
If I could please respond to Andrew. Andrew, maybe I'm not being clear, but I said with the times that I've come by, all we can do is come by at different times of the day to see. Of course, we want to know from you. That's why we're here. We want to know if what we're seeing is what it is all the way from 9 to 5. But I literally came into the neighborhood when I've seen the traffic congested. But when I've come through the neighborhood at various times, I did not, that's the only reason well, that's not the only reason we called the bank, but that was one of the reasons with parking that I did notice several spaces were open. So please don't think that that I am making up anything. That's what I saw. That's what I witnessed. And maybe I should have gone there 4 more times, but I work, I'm working and I have other obligations. And I thought that was a good sort of general test, and that the neighborhood would tell us, like you are now, if there were certain times a day where there were issues. But I just want you to know that I would never do that. And what I felt I said was the reality, which is when I came at different times, I didn't see a lot of people in that parking lot. I never talked about the traffic around. I've seen the traffic be intense at certain times of day, and I've seen it be lighter. But anyway, I just want to share that because I would hate for there to be a misunderstanding of what I was saying.
Okay, thank you. Next, we are going to go to Scott. Scott, you're unmuted.
Sure. Thank you. I'm not an abutter. I'm a resident on Central Ave, probably a half a mile around the corner. I had a lot to say, but I just want to reiterate the last caller, Andrew. I think he's absolutely hit the nail on the head. And also Senior Vice President Mark McKinnon. You folks are not prepared to talk about that particular location if you don't go through it, say, 10 times a week. You're at a location where River turns into River Street turns there at that stop, and it routinely clogs up. In the wintertime, you just need one bus, okay, with the snow on the ground that will get stranded at that intersection. All you need is a few more cars going down that right of way, or whatever way we call it, that alley, which is, first of all, your customers are not going to know if those parking spaces are available until they're already into that lot. And when they're full, they're going to have to go exit somehow, or they're going to end up parking in spaces belonging to the bank. But any more traffic in and out of that alley is problematic for the flow at that clog point in our community. And I think you folks are not very aware at how bad that particular intersection is in Hyde Park. It's really bad. And then just to the point of the spirit, whoever spoke about the spirit of the law concerning this area relative to children. Of all the spots in Hyde Park, you folks have picked one of the maybe 3 top spots that is youth focused right there, with a wading pool, a playground, the Muni, the Y, the school there on Central Ave, and then we've got Riverside Theater Works across the street that caters to youth. It is very much a focal point in our community for children. I also voted for this. Andrew is right. It's not helpful to talk about almost being disrespectful to our community. A lot of us voted for this. I did, but not for this location. Sean Birdie and his organization, that spot, Hyde Park Ave, traffic flow, a lot different than this spot. This is like you pick the epicenter of congestion for our community to put this this location. And I think you folks need to go back, do some real research on traffic flow there during rush hour times, and I think you'll see why the community is upset. I am not against your business. I voted also to have this in our community. This is not the right location. Thank you for your time.
So thank you, and I'm going to address that comment quickly. So one, the purpose of talking about the vote was, and I don't know if that was misconstrued or not understood, is that because of the vote in Boston, 51% of these are approved, will be, Boston will be required to reach that number. So when you start to look at where these go, you have to look at commercial spaces, not just in hidden industrial spaces, but commercial spaces with public transportation. These are all judged on a point system. Public transportation, commercial activity, those are all points that we need to check. This is a commercial building. I know it would be great if it remained vacant, but something's going to go in there, and no matter what goes there, whether it's these folks or somebody else, that is going to cause more people, more employees, more business, but also more customers, more folks spending money, bring money into the economy. And I just don't, it is not going to cause any more traffic than another retail locations for the reasons that we mentioned. For the reason that we're near public transportation, we're hiring local. We do have 5 dedicated spots, which most locations do not have. And even if we were not in this building and the owner said we're going to rent it to someone else, he could give those spots to them. We're fortunate to at least have some parking. But just like any retail space, we would have customers also, if they needed to, parking in public parking areas. That doesn't mean we're going to park in the bank's lot. We have security, we have cameras, and we do have personnel that's going to tell people to not park in someone else's parking on a daily basis. But that's not going to be a problem, because we're not going to have this overflow, this queuing of people in cars. It's just not the reality that happens with these in Boston. And again, that's part of the reason why we said for the first month, it's going to be appointment only.
Okay, so I would suggest for an exercise, before you get in front of too many other organizations in this community, get in your car and actually you do that drive, Jeff, in and out of that alley at different times of day. Listen very carefully to what your Senior Vice President McKinnon had to say. My guess is he probably has a little bit more knowledge about the flow than you guys do. Actually, me living where I do, I have more knowledge about the flow than you guys do, because today alone I went through that intersection 4 times. And I would suggest to you that you need to Come, like Andrew said, become educated about what you're really talking about at this location. Why has this building been vacant for a while? Those 5 spots are not necessarily going to be an asset to you with your client base going in and out of there. That's all I'm saying. So appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, next we have Randy. Excuse me if I'm not pronouncing this correctly.
No, you did pronounce it correctly. Good evening, everybody. So a couple of things that I agree with everybody that's spoken. Traffic. You have to realize also with the Muni being there, that's a pickup and drop off spot for a lot of schools. Traffic there. I live, first of all, I am not in a butter. I live down the street. I am a Hyde Park resident. I've been here for 20 plus years, and it's not gotten better in that intersection. I am for your business. I really, don't care what business goes there. And I'm kind of, I get tired of you keep saying it's a commercial building. We understand it's a commercial building, but you have to understand the traffic flow there is a nightmare. And any business that goes there is going to create even more traffic there. That's one thing. My second thing is, on my last meeting with my community, we were told that there's going to be a health center built in the basement of the Muni. That also is going to cause you more grief with traffic going into that building and the area. So again, like everybody else has stated, you need to come down here between the hours of 1:45 and 7 p.m. and really see the traffic flow. And also, you're not taking in consideration of COVID. School has not been in session. When you come down here during the morning and in the afternoon, you can't get through the intersections here. Again, like everybody else stated, I mean, I'm for your business. You just picked an inopportune and awkward area to put this building in. I mean, to put this business in. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, at this time, I'm not seeing any new hands. I am just going to quickly go through some of our previous community members who spoke, whose hands are still raised, just to see if they have any questions or concerns. Again, if you no longer have any questions, comments, or testimony, if you can just click that hand icon again to virtually put your hand down. Helena, do you have another question?
I do.
Okay.
You can hear me then?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yes, I just wanted to follow up quickly with Rick. You had mentioned that when I had mentioned about closing the establishment between a certain hours due to school, students, children, high school age, children being dropped off and picked up at the Muni, dropped off and picked up at the Y. So having an additional security detail is not going to solve that problem. You have somebody 21 years of age who, purchases, weed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, using this as a dismissal time for students, walks down the West Street, makes the exchange, they walk down Pier Street, and your security detail would be none the wiser. So this is the reason why I'm really concentrating on, one, I prefer it not to be in this area, but if it's going to be in this area, we really have to be centric around this, because this is, like someone has already mentioned, this is a real youth-focused area. So I want to bring that to your attention. Mark made a very valid point about that alleyway between the two establishments. That is absolutely dangerous, and I can't believe I even forgot about that. So that is going to be on my top target as well. You got to come up with something about that, because if the entrance to your establishment is going to be on the River Street side, walking through that alleyway right there where cars go through, I've gone through there myself many a times, and I've been here since 1974. So I'm telling you, that is very, very dangerous, and that has to be worked out. The other question I had is about your hiring practices. And you said, I've heard this conversation over and over again for presentations. It's like, we want to hire City of Boston. We want to be, Hyde Park Center focused, 65% people of color, 20% women, etc. what is your commitment to show that every single year to the community neighborhood associations, to show us that you are doing this and are keeping that commitment? I don't, we just don't want the fodder of conversation. We're going to require something that's going to really prove solid that you're holding to that. And I know you said you're using an agency to do the hiring practices, but we're going to want solidified, absolute, detailed information. And I understand certain information, HR information, is not public information, but you're going to have to be able to present us something that says that you're holding to your word in regards to that. And the final thing is about the CBA agreement, or I should say community benefits agreement. Yes, we would like one of those. And Danielle, I can send out an email to the neighborhood associations asking about what would we like to see as a community benefits, not just for this particular establishment, for new establishments that are coming into our community. And I know they have ticked off a few, but we really want to be able to start identifying where those needs are. I would love to see for there to be some, for instance, summer camp tuition for low income, residents in the area for the YMCA, et cetera, seniors in the area, et cetera. So yes, we do need to come up with a list. And so when we have these organizations that come to us as a community, we could say, these are the areas that we would like for you to donate, or could you donate to? And then we have in a community benefits agreement. And Jeff, would be great for you to kind of draft that once we come up with an idea or conclusion. But again, I am not sold on this particular establishment based on the youth, based on that alleyway in regards to traffic that is very, 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 very dangerous. That's just not it. But good luck going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helena. Okay, right now I do not see any additional hands raised. I do see little exclamation point icons next to people's names, so I'm just going to check in with those community members and see.
I'm sorry, Danielle, if I
No,
don't know
it's
what
worries.
So one of the things that was one of the concerns that was brought up was regarding to how we're going to make sure that we keep our word. And so, that's actually one of the requirements that the CCC has created, which is we have to create a plan where we have to show what we're proposing, the measurements that we're taking, and also every year we have to resubmit our positive impact plan and also diversity plan. So we have to make sure that we are the results that we're getting, how we're getting, are we doing good, or we have to change, we have to make adjustments. So like it was presented, we're going to be introducing our hiring proposals to several groups, posting on local newspapers to make sure that we get, achieve the people that we want to hire that are local people. And so that's how we're going to be addressing and, listening to the neighbors and see how we can help. That would be the best way. So I'll definitely like to see us getting, in touch and listening to your concerns and making sure that we can do our best here to work with the community.
Thank you, Flavia. And anyone who would like to follow up with Jeff or anyone from his team, they can provide their contact information at the end of this meeting as well. I am going to go to Richard. I'm not sure if you have a question, comment, concern. Just going to check in with you. Richard? CL. Do you have a question or a comment?
No, I don't. I just had a few questions I was putting in the chat. I came really late to this meeting. I had another one. I just want a few general questions. I was just, if there was access to the PowerPoint so that I could look over some of the things that I missed and maybe give some feedback.
Yep, so anyone who would like access, this meeting is currently being recorded, so anyone who would like access to this public recorded meeting, I will put my email and I will say my email at the end. Just reach out to me, and the whole presentation along with any community questions or comments will be on there as well.
Okay. Thank you. I guess the one thing I just want to ask here is, are the owners Boston or Massachusetts residents? And then I was wondering what the open hours are.
Yeah, so all, oh, go ahead, Jeff.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, all the owners are Massachusetts residents. One of them is actually from Hyde Park. Lynn has also lived in Hyde Park for, some time in the past. What was that? Oh, hours of operation. So hours of operations are from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. and that's subject to approval as well. So, I mean, I think you asked about the first question because I'm originally from Brazil, but I've been living in the U.S. for about 20 years now. So I consider myself already, I am a citizen. So
No, that's I was asking just because of the large, marijuana dispensaries that have been coming from across the country. So I am happy to hear that it is Boston, Massachusetts residents. I'm very happy to hear there's a dispensary coming to Hyde Park, and I do want to. The traffic can be really crazy in that area. So just same thing everyone said, just checking that area out during that time. Again, just to think about what other possibilities there are.
Sure, thank you.
I think you're muted, Danielle.
I was. Thank you so much. So a question in the chat, if someone from the team, Jeff or anyone, could just explain next steps. So what would take place from your end after this meeting?
So we still have a number of civic associations that we have to meet with. So we'll go through, we just met with Main Street today. This is our first public meeting. So once we meet with the civic associations, we would then check back in with the Cannabis Board, and we would appear before the Cannabis Board once everything is completed with community process. If we were to be approved by the Cannabis Board right now, we would be required to go to the Zoning Board of Appeal, although there is some ordinances out there from the council trying to change that so that cannabis does not have to go through a zoning process. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I know Councilor Edwards got something passed at the council for that. Right, as of right now, we're on a dual track for our location, so we would go to the Cannabis Board and then on to the Zoning Board of Appeal, unless that changes. But and we still have a long way to go with community process.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, seeing no more questions, hands raised, any questions or concerns in the chat box. I'll give everyone a couple more minutes. Please feel free if you do have any questions that come up to just put it in the chat. Again, if you do have any questions and concerns in the meantime, while they are still doing their community outreach process until they go before the Cannabis Board, please feel free to reach out to me or reach out to Jeff and his team. You can reach me at Daniel.Fonseca@boston.gov. I will also put this in the chat, but for those who are joining us via telephone, that's Danielle, D as in Dan, E as in Edward, N as in Nancy, Y, E as in Edward, L, F as in Frank, O as in octopus, N as in Nancy, S as in Sam, E as in Edward, C as in cat, @boston.gov. And you can also feel free to reach out to the Cannabis Board directly with any questions regarding their guidelines at cannabisboard@boston.gov. Jeff and anyone else from your team, you guys can also feel free to leave any contact information you feel comfortable with to connect with any community members or abutters. That would be great as well.
Sure. So should I just type it in or should my email address?
Yes, if you could type it, but it would also be helpful if you could say it as well for anyone who is joining us.
Okay, so my email is my first and last name is F as in Frank, LA, V as in Victor, IA HUN as in Nancy, GARO @hotmail.com. So if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email and I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
And
And again, if anybody, go ahead, I'm sorry.
my name's Rick Nagel, and if you want to contact me, my email is coldcaseinvestigations with an S, coldcaseinvestigations@gmail.com.
My name is Lynn Courier. If you have any ideas of nonprofits or just things in the square that you would like to improve that maybe we could work with you on, my address email is Lynn A. Courier. It's LYNNACURRIER @gmail.com.
And I am Lucas Courier. And for any questions you want to ask, or feel free. I know I didn't get to speak much, but I'd be happy to speak with anyone that has any further questions. And I just took down Andrew's number. So, we want to keep in touch with everyone. We thank everyone for their concerns and their constructive criticism for us. But my email is lcourier, LCURRIER 0913 @gmail.
Anyone who did join this meeting late or just would like to refer back to it, please reach out to me and we can get you the recording for this meeting. All right, seeing no further questions, anything, Jeff, your team would like to wrap up to conclude this meeting?
No, I think we kind of explained everything, and if anyone needs the presentation, let us know. My name is on the flyer, contact information. You can call or reach my office as well.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join this meeting. Again, this is the first initial meeting with our office in the community for this. Please feel free to reach out to me and the team. I hope everyone has a safe and good evening. Jeff will connect tomorrow.
Sure. Thanks, Danielle.
All right, you're welcome.
Bye. Have a good night.